Let's get started with our first news. Ilia Topuria receives major backlash for a recent video. Another day, another clip of Ilia not looking sad or unwell enough to justify being out of a training camp. This time, he's seen with none other than Merab, and while Ilia's personal issues are being handled outside the octagon, fans can't seem to understand that he doesn't need to be locked in a room crying all day to still be struggling mentally. Even though he doesn't look the happiest, Ilia is with Merab, and it appears they're having a good time. The MMA community, however, isn't too happy that Ilia announced a break from MMA to deal with his divorce, yet is still out and about, seemingly normal, and most importantly, not fighting Arman. On Twitter, fans wrote, "Ducking Arman while wearing a custom tracksuit with your name on it is wild." Some gave him the benefit of the doubt, thinking his personal issues were preventing him from fighting. But others argued he can still spar, do interviews, and drive fast cars, meaning he could defend his belt. Critics believe Ilia's family problems are being used as an excuse to avoid difficult fights. One fan jokingly said, "Both looking for a wife," and Merab replied with a laughing emoji. Meanwhile, Ilia posted a video hitting the pads, looking crispy and sharp, showing he is still in excellent shape despite the backlash. Fans are divided, but Ilia appears focused on his family and personal life, enjoying time with Merab while staying ready for the future. Move on to another news. Jake Paul is showing interest in taking on Francis Ngannou next, and he just made it clear on the Impulsive podcast. He called out Francis directly, and it's leaving fans wondering what he's really doing. Some are asking if he's taking Joe Rogan's advice seriously, but nope, Jake seems to be charting his own path. At this point, you have to wonder if he's really trying to speedrun CTE with the way he's jumping into these big fights. Jake made bold claims about Francis, saying, "I would do better than Francis, and Francis kind of got no chin. Francis is low-key soft." He even pointed out that he made it further than Francis by 6 rounds and is now aiming for 8. He joked about the matchup, saying that Francis could be Francis, and that he could take the fight seriously or just have fun with it. Jake is clearly confident in his ability to hang with one of the biggest names in MMA. Speaking about his previous fight with AJ, Jake reflected on his performance, saying he believes he won 2 rounds. He explained, "It's not that hard to get beat. I won 2 rounds, then he won 2, and then I got dropped. Yeah, I was doing good, but my cardio and the mental pressure of facing a big guy were different than sparring with smaller opponents using 10-aughts gloves. I was feeling his power a lot more, but it was a great experience. I learned a lot in there." When asked if AJ surprised him with his power, Jake admitted he wasn't shocked, but he did feel the difference in pressure, speed, and intensity. He emphasized that every fight is a learning experience, and that stepping into the ring with someone like AJ prepared him for even bigger challenges, including potentially taking on Francis. Jake's mindset is focused on testing himself against top-tier competition while also keeping the spotlight on himself, knowing that calling out big names like Francis generates massive buzz. Even though some critics question his strategy, Jake remains unfazed. He's confident in his abilities, openly talks about weaknesses in other fighters, and is ready to push his limits. Fans can expect him to continue seeking high-profile matchups, and this latest call-out to Francis Ngannou proves he's not backing down anytime soon. He's clearly playing the long game, blending entertainment, confidence, and calculated risk to stay in the spotlight and make his next move in boxing and MMA circles. Move on to another news. Joe Rogan sends a warning to Jake Paul following his recent bout against Anthony Joshua. This past weekend, fans were treated to a massive boxing event as Jake Paul stepped into the ring with AJ, and Netflix revealed that an astonishing 33 million people watched the fight live. To put that into perspective, the Canelo versus Crawford fight drew 41.4 million views, making Jake Paul's fight one of the biggest boxing spectacles in recent history. Following the fight, Joe Rogan spoke about Jake's health and the long-term risks of boxing on his podcast with Tom Segura. Rogan cautioned that Jake shouldn't stay in boxing for too long, explaining that the price for continuing in the sport can be extremely high and often not worth it. That price, he emphasized, is health. Rogan outlined the consequences, saying, "Don't do this very long because there's a price you pay that is not worth it. It's not worth it. And that price is depression, deep depression, a severe brain imbalance that's going to lead to addiction. It leads so many people to impulsive behavior. So many become gambling addicts, alcoholics, or addicts of other kinds after their fighting career ends. He went on to describe the physical toll of big punches, pointing out that every fighter has a limited number of punches their brain can endure safely in a lifetime. He referred to the punches Jake took from AJ, saying, "That one was like 10 punches. That was a lot of concussions in just one strike." Rogan stressed that the impact wasn't just on the jaw, but inside the head, where real damage occurs. He highlighted how breaking a jaw in multiple places simultaneously can cause serious internal injuries and long-term neurological consequences. Joe's message was clear. While boxing can bring fame, money, and massive exposure, it carries serious risks that shouldn't be underestimated. He urged Jake and other fighters to consider the long-term effects on their mental and physical health. Even a single fight at this level can leave lasting damage, and the repeated trauma from continuing in the sport can lead to severe consequences, both inside and outside the ring. Rogan's warning serves as a reminder that even high-profile matches come with serious personal costs, and staying in the game too long can jeopardize everything. Move on to another news. Ben Askren is expressing disappointment with Khamzat Chimaev following his recent performance against Jurgis Duplessis. Despite what many saw as a dominant showing by Khamzat, Askren felt that he played it too safe and didn't fully capitalize on his opportunities. In a recent interview with Helen Ye at the Real American Freestyle event, Askren weighed in on Khamzat's approach, saying, "He looked great against Duplessis. Although I was disappointed, he didn't take more chances. He really played it safe. He can take him down and stay on top, but he really didn't try to hurt him too much." That was kind of disappointing. Askren acknowledged that Khamzat looked strong and controlled the fight, but he wanted to see more aggression and risk-taking, emphasizing that the younger fighter has the skills to dominate more thoroughly. He also pointed out the curiosity in Khamzat talking about moving up in weight again, noting that he recently fought at 170 pounds. "It's interesting he's thinking about moving up again," Askren added, highlighting that Khamzat's career trajectory is something fans will want to watch closely. In the same interview, Askren also shared his thoughts on the current welterweight scene, particularly the matchup between Islam Makhachev and Kamaru Usman. Askren was not pleased with the idea of Usman getting another title shot, feeling that younger fighters like Ian Gary and Michael Morales have earned the opportunity more than veterans with recent losses. He said, "He obviously was a champion for a long time, but it's been a little bit, and he's had a few losses more recently. The welterweight belt has changed hands a lot. He lost to Leon. Leon lost to Baal. Baal lost to JDM. JDM lost to So. It's not like he lost to the last guy and now he's getting a rematch. The newer guys at welterweight have done enough to justify title shots for themselves." Askren emphasized the importance of earning a title shot rather than relying on favoritism or legacy. "I know the favorites card gets played sometimes in MMA, with Dana and Patty getting title shots even if they don't totally deserve it. I like to see when guys earn it. I don't love Ian Gary, but I really think he has earned it," he said. His comments underline a growing sentiment in the welterweight division that the UFC should prioritize up-and-coming contenders who have proven themselves in recent fights over former champions looking for rematches. Move on to another news. UFC updates are coming in from the last 24 hours, and we've got some exciting matchups and news to cover. First up, a fight reported for UFC 324. According to Crazy Kev, Adam Fugat is set to take on Ty Miller on January 24th. Fugat is currently 2-3 in the UFC, coming off a loss to Islam Dulatov back in July. Meanwhile, Ty Miller is making his UFC debut after earning a contract on Dana White's Contender Series in August, marking a big step in his MMA career. 2 weeks later, Wristlock MMA is reporting a matchup for UFC 326, later confirmed by Marcel Dorff. Dusko Todorovic is set to face Dante Johnson on March 7th. Todorovic is a Contender Series winner from 2019 and is currently 4-6 in the promotion. His most recent fight was a win over Jose Medina in September. Dante Johnson, also a Contender Series winner, earned his contract in August and is 1-0 since signing, coming off a win over Cedric Duma in November. This fight is scheduled for middleweight and promises to be an exciting clash of rising talents. A week later, Crazy Kev, later confirmed by Nolan King and Marcel Dorff, reports that Brad Tavara will fight Eric Anders at UFC Vegas 114. Tavara, a longtime UFC vet, is 16-11 in the promotion and recently lost to Robert Birch by TKO in September. Anders has been inactive, fighting only twice since 2023, with a career record of 9-9 plus 1 no contest. He last fought in August against Christian Leroy Duncan, losing by TKO. With both coming off TKO losses, this matchup promises fireworks. Off the octagon, UFC commentator Paul Felder shared an update in an interview with Mike Owens for Fight Bananas. Felder recently underwent hip replacement surgery, which kept him off the air toward the end of 2025. He said, "I just had hip replacement surgery 3 weeks ago, so I haven't been working for a little while. The timing was perfect, with the break going into December and January. I've been putting it off for years, so I got a full right hip replacement. I've got a full schedule starting February in the Apex, then Texas, 2 or 3 events a month until July. The UFC renewed my 5-year deal, and I'll be part of the Paramount switch, so you'll be seeing a lot more of me." With all these fights and updates, the UFC landscape is heating up, both inside and outside the octagon, as fighters prepare for their next challenges and commentators like Felder return to the spotlight. Move on to another news. Dana White is scheduled to testify in court for a new UFC lawsuit. Earlier this year, back in May, former UFC fighter Misha Sirinov filed another antitrust lawsuit against the promotion. This time, the lawsuit focuses on a clause in UFC contracts regarding arbitration rules and class action waivers. Sirinov is seeking damages and an order invalidating the arbitration and class action waiver clauses that still exist in UFC contracts today, while also aiming to eliminate those clauses in all future deals. For context, an arbitration clause with a class action waiver is a contract provision that forces disputes into private arbitration instead of court, allowing the UFC to settle without going before a judge. It also prevents individuals from joining together in group lawsuits, requiring one-on-one resolution. While this is common in contracts to avoid class action lawsuits, it's controversial because it limits consumer rights and the ability of fighters to challenge the organization collectively. Now, Dana White will testify on behalf of the UFC regarding this case. John Nash shared the news on Twitter, writing, "Sirinov versus Zuffa UFC antitrust news. It is hereby ordered. The spoliation hearing is set for February 4th and February 5th of 2026 at 9 a.m. Mr. Dana White will testify first, followed by Miss Tracy Long." Many people might be wondering what a spoliation hearing is. In simple terms, it's a court hearing that addresses the destruction, altering, or failure to preserve evidence that is relevant to a legal case. The spoliator, the person who damaged or altered the evidence, has created a problem that can prevent the other party from presenting their case effectively. The party requesting the hearing files a motion asking the judge for sanctions, which are penalties for violating rules, often because the lost evidence was detrimental to the requesting party. Sanctions can include adverse jury instructions, allowing the jury to assume the missing evidence would have harmed the spoliator, striking defenses, monetary fines, or even dismissal of the entire case, depending on intent. It's not entirely clear yet who the spoliator is and who filed the motion, but on February 4th and 5th, Dana White will testify, and this hearing could have major implications for the UFC and its contract practices. Fans and fighters alike will be watching closely as the situation unfolds. Move on to another news. Michael Bisping believes Merab Dvalishvili deserves an immediate title shot in the bantamweight division. In a recent episode, Bisping dismissed any notion that Merab shouldn't get another opportunity, but he also added that Merab should wait his turn if Umar Nurmagomedov gets past Podolyan first. If that fight happens, Yan versus Umar would be a massive clash, both being huge stars in the Russian region with enormous followings. Both have history with Merab, and stylistically, it would be a dream matchup for hardcore fans. Bisping emphasized that this scenario actually lines up with how the UFC builds hype. It creates one of the biggest bantamweight fights ever, generates international attention, and by the time Merab steps back in, the belt becomes even more valuable. He explained, "There's a few people that have beaten Merab, but Merab probably deserves the rematch if we're being honest. If you look at the body of work, then yeah, he probably does. But Umar Nurmagomedov is out there, so I would say let Yan defend for a minute. Take a break, brother. Have a little time off." Bisping also encouraged fighters to enjoy the rewards of their hard work. "You've done incredible things. You've no doubt earned a tremendous amount of money. You've represented your country at the highest level, and you've put yourself through it. Have 3, 4, 5 months off. Rest on your laurels. Reap the rewards of your riches and your spoils. Relax. Take a break. Let the body and the mind relax a little bit. Then come back and look to take your throne. In the meantime, let Podoryan fight Umar Nurmagomedov. Bisping's perspective highlights that while Merab deserves a title shot, patience and timing are key in the UFC. By letting the upcoming matchup between Yan and Umar play out, the division remains dynamic, and Merab's eventual return to the title picture will carry even more significance, building anticipation and hype for fans worldwide.